From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Protecting wheat.
We got to get these prices up somehow.
See the latest research being done to help the crop grow in the Deep South. The latest on the avian flu outbreak in cattle, what one government agency wants to do for workers at dairies and slaughterhouses, as cotton producers look for a bigger crop and better prices.
Merchandisers are going to take it in the shorts here.
What the market is looking like these days, right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when experience meets expertise. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Happening right now, cotton planting is running ahead of schedule in some key growing areas. USDA is reporting that 24% of the crop is now in the ground nationwide, and it says cotton is 24% planted in Texas, 3% ahead of the 5-year average, and is running way ahead of schedule in Mississippi and Virginia. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, while planting is good news for producers, cotton prices have seen some steep declines.
Yeah, Clinton, they sure have. Cotton did have a nice rally to start 2024, but both old and new crop contracts in Chicago have plummeted just in the last 2 months. Now, this is despite tight U.S. acreage and some lingering production issues here in the U.S. However, the hope is that as farmers start planting this crop, prices have found a low. Cotton posted a strong rally the first 2 months of the year trying to secure acres, and old crop prices moved well over $1. But since the highs February 28th, the July contract has dropped nearly 28 cents to last week's lows, with new crop December down roughly 15 cents. Market analysts say it's a result of demand with a stronger dollar and weaker global economies, especially China.
Especially over in Asia, is really struggling. Europe's starting to struggle a little bit. The consumer is, battening down the hatches. And I think, you're seeing merchandisers just have a difficult time moving product right now. China, they've been very weak the last couple of years, really the last 2-3 years, and they put a lot of money in their economy.
In the U.S., demand for apparel is also down as Payne says consumers are pulling back with inflation and higher interest rates.
Merchandisers are going to take it in the shorts here. You see Nike earnings. You've seen a lot of these big, multi-conglomerate companies that market clothing are struggling, and they're struggling to move supply. Prices are too high, I think, for a lot of folks right now, and they can shop elsewhere.
However, he thinks the market is trying to bottom as prices have gotten too cheap, and U.S. production is uncertain with historically low cotton acreage and some lingering pockets of drought.
In my opinion here, we've probably gone a little too far just based off what the farmer dynamics will be. I mean, it makes no sense for me to recommend any sales at these prices because, we're at crop insurance price levels where it's basically insured.
He says the recovery in cotton prices may be slow, though, until the Fed starts to lower interest rates and global economies and currencies start to stabilize. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. This could cause additional delays to planting. Once again, severe weather tearing through the central part of the country. The red dots on this map representing tornadoes reported. 8 were reported in Oklahoma, 2 in Kansas, South Dakota, and Iowa, and 1 each in Nebraska, Missouri, and Tennessee. As Laura Aguirre reports, search and rescue teams are in Oklahoma looking for survivors.
Man, this is Mother Nature. I mean, all we could do is just, take cover.
Daybreak over northeast Oklahoma, revealing the path of a massive, destructive overnight tornado.
Walk out and look at the damage and just be glad you're alive.
Small towns like Bartlesville and Barnsdall, about 40 miles north of Tulsa, taking some of the hardest hits from the savage pre-dawn storm.
We have had significant damage to a large portion of the town. We did have 1 fatality so far.
Some injured residents were treated at a local hospital, says the mayor, adding that search and rescue teams are still combing through leveled buildings.
As soon as we get done conducting our secondary search, we will begin cleanup.
Cleanup that will be all too familiar for much of the town. Many residents here were still rebuilding from an EF1 twister that roared through in early April. The emotional toll now nearly as devastating as the physical damage.
I know 75 to 80% of the people in this town. The individual that we lost, I knew him very well, and it's pretty tough.
And they may not be out of the woods yet. Forecasters say tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds could revisit parts of Texas and Oklahoma up into much of the Midwest and Tennessee Valley through Wednesday, with a lower risk stretching into New England and along the mid-Atlantic coast. I'm Laura Aguirre reporting for AgDay.
And the threat of severe weather remains. Meteorologist Martin Lorimore has an update for us.
Yeah, we have been having a bit of an active week over the past couple of days. A lot of those storms bringing in the possibilities of tornadoes, and we're not going to be seeing that going away anytime soon as we get into our Wednesday. As we go throughout the rest of this day, we'll be seeing this low pressure scooting its way down into the center part of the country where there is going to be more chance for those storms, stretching in from about eastern Oklahoma all the way up until almost the Ohio River Valley, staying a little bit further south than those storms that did move through on our Tuesday, but still watching for these storms to move their way out of here as this low pressure scoots its way down, bringing in some more rain across the eastern seaboard and some rain chances for a good portion of the southeast as well. Noticing this low pressure as well, bringing in a little bit of these snowflakes across the higher elevations of the Rockies. So more of that snowfall, even though we've already got ourselves halfway into May. It is going to be staying pretty cool across that part of the country, but of course, still seeing that low pressure making its way out, bringing in some more of that rain across parts of the Great Lakes for your Mother's Day weekend. And things are looking up for Dave in Wallacestown, Ontario. He said it's been finally dry enough to let the cows out in the pasture. And as you can see, oh man, they were looking forward to it. I'll have more on that forecast coming up.
The CDC is now asking state agencies to make personal protective equipment available for farm workers following the discovery of avian flu in dairy cattle. Now, the agency is saying in a release it's asking state health departments to work with their state ag departments and other partners to help coordinate the distribution of the equipment. They would like it to be made available to workers on dairy and poultry farms as well as in slaughterhouses. The CDC's principal deputy director recommending that states make it a priority to hand out PPE to farms where cattle have already been infected. He said some states have already started distributing that PPE to dairy farms. The agency continues to say the immediate risk to the public from H5N1 remains low, but it highlighted the importance of acting now to protect certain farm workers who may be at higher risk of infection. Farmer sentiment took a big drop last month. That's according to the latest Ag Economy Barometer. The monthly survey of farmer sentiment by Purdue University and the CME Group coming in with a reading of 99. That's down 15 points from March. Purdue says it was the weakest farmer sentiment reading since June of 2022 and the lowest current condition rating since May of 2020. Both the current condition index and the future expectations index saw a drop.
People became less optimistic about what was taking place on their farms today. And they're also starting to show some evidence of being some concerns about where we're headed here over the course of the next year.
During this month's survey, farmers were asked again about leasing farmland for solar energy production, and there was a noticeable uptick in the percentage of farmers who reported having a discussion with a company about it in the last 6 months. It now stands at 19%. That's up from 12% in March. Construction is officially underway on a new ag research center at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Officials breaking ground this week on the National Center for Resilient and Regenerative Precision Agriculture. The facility will be located on Nebraska's Innovation Campus in Lincoln. The center will focus on key research areas to address the challenges farmers face, along with promoting sustainable, resilient, and efficient agriculture practices. It will perform research on wheat, barley, sorghum, forage, and bioenergy grasses. It is expected to double the USDA's science and support staff at the university. The 120,000-foot complex is due to open between 2031 and 2032. Soybeans battle to keep the rally going while livestock get a bit of a lift. We'll talk markets coming up next. And later, we're off to Louisiana, where scientists are searching for new varieties of wheat to battle head scab today in the country. Corn and soybeans ran into resistance on Tuesday, while livestock got a bounce. Michelle Rook is back to break it all down in Markets Now.
Grains easing slightly on Tuesday. Arlen Suderman is back with us. And Arlen, let's talk just a little bit about the setback. How much of that was just a little bit of farmer selling versus, were these markets due for a little break?
Yeah, I think we were getting in overbought territory in a lot of these markets. Not too concerned about that. We'd come up a long way without really sufficient fundamental support for it. I think it was more about money flow with some fundamental reasons to help trigger it. Farmer selling has really increased on both sides of the equator in Brazil, where they are also dealing with a cheap currency that helped really amplify or support their cash prices. And then here in the States, particularly with the rain out, when you're rained out of the field, you see these prices, it's an opportunity to get caught up.
But then we also ran up into some chart resistance areas too, didn't we?
Yes, you look at some of the, depending on the market, the moving averages and where we were expected to go to. We hit some of those objectives. And with that, the fund's just kind of backing off. They're still in a net short position for the most part, but they've eased their risk exposure quite a bit by lightening the load of short positions.
Absolutely. Do you think that the funds are going to lighten their load much more?
Well, I think over time, we're going to be, particularly if we see this move toward reinflation that we've been talking about for the last 6 months. Remember, I've been saying on these interviews for the last 6 months that come the second or third quarter of this year, I thought the funds would look at the reinflation problem and say, we don't really want to be short the commodities. And so I do think over time, we're going to continue to see that.
No doubt. So the WASDE on Friday, this is the first new crop estimates that we're going to get. Do you anticipate they're going to be bearish? I mean, is that the other reason why maybe the grain markets have taken a pause?
I think that's one reason we kind of stalled out here. The expectation is that we're going to get a reality check on Friday. I think USDA's wheat ending stocks number will be very similar to this past year, but corn is expected to go up very modestly and soybeans maybe a little bit more significantly, assuming normal weather for the growing season.
Okay, we'll see what we get out on Friday. Thanks so much, Arlen Suderman with StoneX. We'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rourke on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Contact Arlen Suderman by email at arlen.suderman@stonex.com.
Still looking at the chance for a possibility of those strong to severe storms across the center part of the country, moving a little bit eastward from the past couple of days. This one actually staying its way across eastern Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, most of Kentucky, and most of Tennessee as well, including a sliver of the southeast. You see part of Mississippi there included in that several severe storm risks. So possibility of tornadoes, damaging winds, large hail, and heavy rainfall is all going to be expected with this system. We're going to be seeing heavy rainfall moving across most of this part of the country as well. You can see when that storm really does pick up, you see some of these areas in the orange, the red here, up to 3, maybe 5 inches of rain in just a couple of days as we head into our work week and even the weekend, seeing plenty of that rainfall. So your flooding potential will be there for your Wednesday, right in that area where they're seeing the best chance of those severe storms. And as that low pressure moves its way down, that threat level moved its way into the southeast, a deep south right here. You could see parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and even parts of Louisiana sitting in that higher risk for the potential of flooding on your Thursday. And by Friday, it's almost completely out of the area. And luckily by Saturday, not seeing any more of that heavy rainfall potential for any part of the country. So your Mother's Day weekend is looking a little bit better than this rest of the week has been. So as we look at the jet stream, we can still see plenty of that low pressure make its way through. This is actually going to detach itself over here in the Four Corners region. And this will make its way across parts of the Four Corners, dissipating as it does, but the larger low pressure sticking around to the Great Lakes area. This is going to be pulling in much cooler air into parts of the Great Lakes, especially the western Great Lakes, and this will make it a little bit cooler as we do get into that Mother's Day weekend. So if you have any plans after your planting is done, it's going to be a little bit cool for your weekend. Weatherford, Oklahoma, very warm, high 81 degrees, very sunny as well. Laramie, Wyoming, a little cooler, windy as well, high 45 degrees. And finally, Red Oak, Iowa, nice day, partly cloudy, high 72.
Two sisters in Pennsylvania are being recognized for their organic yogurt, and it's landed them a spot on Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Located in the rolling hills of Pennsylvania, Painterland Sisters Icelandic Yogurt is truly a dream come true for them. They were guests this week on Farm Journal's new podcast called Grow Getters, which is hosted by Davis Michelson. Now, the sisters are now the 4th generation on their family dairy, which consists of 400 cows.
We saw really cool, powerful women that were helping their families' businesses on the Forbes 30 under 30. And so my sister and I looked at each other, we're like, we want to do that. We want to represent dairy farming, right? Agriculture in Forbes 30 under 30. Like, wouldn't that be amazing to make it relatable and make dairy cool and fun to the general consumer? And so that's what 30 under 30 really means to Haley and I, that, hey, like, we're making dairy farming mainstream.
That's when they decided to partner with a co-packer in Pennsylvania to market their products across the U.S., and it worked. Their story is just one of many on Grow Getters as farmers search and find side hustles that are often the key to staying in production.
Grow Getters is a chance for me to talk to people who had already been doing what we might call conventional farming. Corn and beans, maybe they got a dairy, they got a beef who knows, whatever it is. But they have found some way to make just a little bit of extra money outside of their conventional farming operation.
You can hear more from Davis and stories like the Painterland sisters on Farm Journal's Grow Getters podcast, now available on Farm Journal's YouTube page. Make sure to subscribe for the most up-to-date episode. U.S. pork exports held strong in March. That's according to new numbers compiled by the U.S. Meat Export Federation. It reports pork exports total more than 260,000 metric tons. That's up 0.1% from a year ago. March shipments to South Korea were a highlight, among the largest on record. President and CEO Dan Hallstrom says there was growth in other areas for pork exports as well.
The Central American region, which is nothing new, continues to rock and roll. They were up 28%. Colombia, down in South America, another market that's had a really good run the last 4 or 5 months, was up almost 40%. And Australia and New Zealand continues to show the strength they've seen the last 3 or 4 months as well, with growth of about 60% up to 8,000 metric tons. So I think the bottom line there is that the diversification model works very well.
Through the first quarter, pork exports increased 6% to more than 762,000 metric tons. The flooding in southern Brazil isn't just impacting lives in the area's soybean crop, but also meat packers. It's reported torrential rains and flooding have killed livestock, blocked roads, and forced meat packers to partially or fully halt operations at 10 pork or poultry plants. The plants are located in the Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil area. That region could face a shortage of poultry and pork products until the production systems resume, which could take more than 30 days. The state accounts for 11% of Brazil's total chicken production and almost 20% of pork supplies. In Louisiana, scientists are on the hunt. They're looking for disease-resistant varieties of wheat and oats. What they found next in the country. While wheat acres are down in Louisiana, LSU Ag Center researchers are still working on developing varieties that can be grown throughout the Southeast. Craig Gautreaux gives us an update on both the ongoing research and the status of the wheat crop.
The LSU Ag Center wheat and oat breeding program has been around for nearly 40 years. During this time, 26 wheat and oat varieties have been released and grown throughout the southeastern United States. The goal of the program is simple.
What we're trying to do is develop higher yielding varieties that have better disease resistance, that are more profitable for growers.
One reason for the dip in acreage is a disease called scab. The disease caused major losses in the past several years, which scared growers away. Coming up with a disease-resistant line is a challenge.
There are no silver bullets. There are no genes that will say resistant to scab. There are genes that give some resistance that you can kind of pyramid and stack together and get a reasonable level of resistance.
Harrison advised growers to avoid planting wheat behind a corn crop.
Corn is a host of the Fusarium organism, and so if you plant wheat after corn, you're asking for a scab problem.
Louisiana only has about 10,000 acres this year, which is a far cry from when the state had nearly 300,000 acres. While disease issues have played a role, economics is also a factor.
They're in it for the profit, right? I mean, that's the reason growers plant their crop, certainly to provide food and fiber, but also to raise their families. So we got to get these prices up somehow.
Farmers are expected to begin harvesting as soon as the end of May. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gotro reporting.
All right, thanks, Craig. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in Farm Country.